Good evening, everyone. I literally was talking and I was muted. You guys are going to have to forgive me. I am doing technical support this evening because LaShawn is taking the night off, but I am here, you guys, with a special guest, and we're going to get to that in just a moment because I have got to introduce her. But first of all, I'm going to just let you guys know, welcome to Talk About It Tuesday with Amber the Breezy Butterfly. For Talk About It Tuesday, we help those who have experienced loss or trauma discover their personal love story through self-care. And we are coming live this evening with our special guest. I am so excited this evening because we have Miss drumroll, Miss B.G. Brandy Green, Kingdom CEO, author, praise dancer, public speaker, mother of three, anointed woman of God that is on here this evening. Joining me as my co-host, I am just super duper excited to have you here with me this evening for this episode of Talk About It Tuesday. So welcome. Say hi to our audience.
Hello.
I think you're muted. Are you muted, Brandy? Or is that just me? Hold on. Maybe it's me. Okay, totally me. Once again, technical support. There we go. Oh, hey, First Lady. First Lady of my church. Good evening. If you guys are joining, please put the city and state that you are joining from in the chat. We'd just love to find out where God is expanding his territory So come on in, come on in, come on in. Join us. We love an interactive audience. Brandy's typically on the other side in the chat. So it is like awesome to have you on with me this evening. I love it.
It's a different position for sure. I'm feeling a little outside of my box.
This is just preparation. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Yes. So see, we always have this comment. We say that what may seem as problematic is never a problem. It's just God's repositioning. Yes. So this evening, we have our segment Self-Care, and we've titled it Identifying Resources Linked to the Ultimate Source. So, the ultimate source of power. So really what I wanted to kind of do this evening, first of all, is just kind of have an overview of what we have talked about in some of the past segments, which Brandy has been blessed to be a part of. So we're just going to kind of just have a chat, Brandy. So when we actually began this journey, like months and months ago, we started kind of sprinkling resources in, along the way. And so really tonight, what we want to do is just kind of highlight some of those resources. And then we're going to get to Brandy, who's going to kind of talk to us. But we really want to kind of start talking a little bit about kind of what we call total care and then reaching ultimate goals, right? So when we first started out, our very first segment was about physical self-care. And so some of the resources that we talked about during physical self-care, actually first I should probably talk, just kind of highlight a little bit about physical self-care. So when we were talking about physical self-care, for those of you who might be joining us for the very first time for Talk About It Tuesday, we talk a lot about discovering your love story through self-care. And physical self-care, we talked quite a bit about your body. We talked about sleep. We talked about nutrition. We talked about movement. And so some of the resources, because we're talking this evening in our resource segment this evening about identifying resources related to a total care, because really, we really need to make sure that we take care of our entire self, right? So having a real holistic approach to taking care of our bodies, because it's our temple, right? So Brandy, would you agree that it makes a difference about taking care of our whole entire body?
I do agree that it makes a difference. Anytime we're hitting one tier, whether that's the mind, body, the soul, and we're not making that connection with all, we're imbalanced. And so I know there's been times in my life where I've been very intentional, if you will, about maybe doing the self-care physically, but I wasn't really tackling that with my soul or anything else, and I could feel that imbalance. And so I think it's very important to connect the dots all the way across.
Absolutely. And I think that it's a daily thing. We talk a lot about practicing versus applied. And what that means is we need to practice self-care daily so that it does not have to be applied like a Band-Aid. Hey, Cuzzy, I love you. Thank you so much. My cousin, Shauna, I love her. One of the ways that my cousin, Shauna, practices self-care is she loves horses and she rides her horses. And so we talk a lot about the different ways that people practice self-care, and it's individualized. Okay. So for example, when we talked about physical self-care, some of the resources that we identified are community health drives. We talked about occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. We also talked about the fact that even though we are not, registered dietitians, nutritionists, things of that nature, that the reason why we were talking about, resources through city and county health departments and health centers and food banks and food pantries is that if on a basic level that your needs are not being met, it is extremely difficult to really accomplish ultimate goals. Would you agree with that, Brandy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could just be transparent for myself and know that if things were not even together here and in my home and with my children, it was hard to tackle personal goals or to have a sound mind to be able to minister to other people, because often if we're running on low fumes or from an empty cup, there's not even really anything that we can offer to ourselves, to our children, to our community, to our churches. And so I could definitely testify to that, and say yes. Yes.
Yeah, because it's a distraction.
Hmm.
It's a distraction, not to get scientific on people, but like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like if food, shelter, and water are not taken care of, trying to take care of other things is just kind of blown out the water.
Impossible. Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be impossible to really be able to focus on much else if basic needs are not being handled. And so we talk about those things. Also, we've talked about accessing your health insurance to have routine screenings and labs. Once again, sometimes the things that are going on internally in our body, if our blood chemistry, if, we talked about female health issues and having those screenings. For those of us that are advancing in age, like myself, when you get to the age where you're over 40, our bodies are different. I'm a different person than when I was maybe in my 20s or 30s, like you, Brandy. And so I have to treat my body differently. I have to put different things, vitamins and supplements in my body than maybe when I was in those younger phases of life. Well, if those things are going on in my brain processes information differently at this age in my life, then I can be distracted, right? So would you say that that's something that maybe even to be aware of, that if there's stuff going on internally, it can contribute to things mentally, emotionally, and psychologically?
I think it goes back to the mind, body, and soul, and just having a total balance in all of it. Because I know for me, going to therapy is one of the ways that I had to tackle that self care. There was just a time when I just needed to go to therapy. And once I was going to therapy and I was going consistently, I felt better to do housework. I felt better to eat healthy. I felt better to do some light exercising, whether it was walking in the neighborhood with my kids or doing something on YouTube. But once I was able to tackle the mental, if you will, then it made the physical and the soul a lot better to what's the word
Kind
I'm
of
looking for?
motivation.
Correlate. Yeah,
Yeah.
it made it better to correlate those things. And so I know for me personally in this season, God has dealt with me a lot about balance. And I just, want to say this, if I'm free enough to say this, oftentimes we're really good about hitting things spiritually, but then we still lack practicality. And so that's where we need balance when it comes to the total self care. And hi, Kenya. When it comes to the total self care and aligning those tiers, it all goes together. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to stand on what I said, Amber. When you are off on one, you're off on everything, because it takes that balance to bring it all together.
Absolutely. And I stand on the lines of like seasons change. Seasons changed in age. Seasons change with changes in life situations and circumstances. I know that I've made some major changes in my life. And so I'm going to be transparent as well. And thank you, Brandy, for being very candid and transparent. One of the things that we do on here is this is a very get real show. And so we want to make sure that when we're on here that we just let you guys know, we let it all hang out. LaShawn is not with us this evening, so I'm just blessed to have Brandy joining me. And she's also a very transparent individual. Is that we want people to know that we're real people. We have real situations and things going on, right? So we share those things with you guys. Before I left work today, I called the employee assistance program. And I said, I've had some major changes going on in my life, and I need some supports to be able to navigate carefully through these emotions and the things that are going on. Because I said, the woman that was on the phone with me, she said, I think that maybe what's occurred is that your brain has finally caught up with your body. And I said, I think that you're absolutely correct, because sometimes that's what occurs, is that we have so much that's happening that we're still moving. We still have to show up for jobs. We still wear out of maybe being mothers. We still have to show up for your children, right? We have, we're employees or maybe employers, both, because I happen to be both. You happen to be both. We're CEOs and founders of our companies, our businesses, our kingdom businesses, right? Absolutely. Kenya is a kingdom CEO. She does it all. She wears all the hats, girl. She's a counselor. Those of us that have those empathic giftings and everything is, it's a lot, because especially when you're in a helping field where you're constantly pouring out, oftentimes you're constantly pouring, right? Yeah. But then you're like, well, when was the last time that, the well was poured into? And so today, I was like, wait a minute, I need to make sure that I'm much more proactive in this phase of my life versus being reactive. And so that was something where, we've talked constantly, and we're going to do it over and over and over again about our STOP acronym. And what the word STOP, S-T-O-P, means: stressors, triggers, observations, and then pause to collect that data for yourself and find out, what does this information mean? For me, I was like, I'm feeling it in my body, that, okay, this is sitting on my chest, for the first time in almost 2 years, I'm meeting again, face to face in person with clients. It really, for me, makes a difference whether I'm in person or I'm virtually meeting clients now, because that energy is in the same room with me. And so I was like, I need to tackle this like head on, right? So we talked about those things. The other thing is, we talked about, sleep studies. If you're having disruptions in your sleep, that matters. So making sure that, we're talking about those things with regards to physical health. We talked a lot about recuperative night sleep. That's a really long, big, fancy word. But what it means is, if you are tired and you go to sleep and you wake up and you're still tired, you're not getting adequate rest. So there is something that's speaking to your body. Your body is telling you something. And so we've talked about that. Gym memberships are resources. Your YWCAs, YMCAs, and your rec centers also have resources. Yes, absolutely. Kenya is an amazing practitioner herself. She's also my sister, and she says masking is real. Yes. And oftentimes we see this in women. We take care of other people. We do a really good job of loving others, and we need to do a better job of making sure that we love ourselves, right? Putting yourself first is not selfish. It means that you are taking care of yourself. And so we really use the term carefully navigating through emotions, because when you care fully for yourself, then you actually have the capacity to really do well in taking care of other people, Okay. So, yes, put your mask on first. Absolutely. First Lady. Yes, put your mask on first. So we talked at length about psychological and emotional self-care. So talking about those experts in the field. So psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors. So reaching out to those individuals, I just was very candid about reaching out to the Employee Assistance Program. So those of you that work at jobs or organizations or companies, that is a free resource. When I contacted them today, they said you have 8 free sessions through your Employee Assistance Program. If you have a family, they also have family resources. The other thing that they don't oftentimes tell you up front is that every time you have a new problem, those free units recoup. Most people have multiple challenges going on, right? And then also there's traditional counseling services or faith-based services for individuals that really want to tap into that as well. And then Brandy, you were very candid in sharing that you've accessed the therapeutic process as well. And that's been a help to you.
I recommend it. Mm-hmm.
I recommend it. I've used both traditional counseling services, faith-based counseling services. I currently have both a counselor and a life coach. You know, as a certified life coach, I am coached because I believe that it's imperative to have somebody that you trust, and then you just lay it all down and let it go. Right? Everybody needs that place where you can just unleash. I say, unleash all those things and just, be stress free in that protected space. Yeah. Absolutely. God and therapy coexist. That's
Yeah.
absolutely. And, the thing too is, one of the things that it took me a while to really understand is having the right therapy person fit matters. Because for years I was just showing up, kind of like the same thing as if you are like my mother, for example. Let me use this example. My mother said that you'll know when you go to the right church because you're being fed. She was like, go to the place where you're fed. You just know, you get to the sanctuary, you sit there, and you're really being fed. And so, when you know that you have the right fit with the therapist that fits with you, you're like, I'm willing to just lay it all out there. So really making sure, you wouldn't continue showing up at like a primary care physician's doctor's office if your illness wasn't being treated. If you kept having the same symptoms and you were never finding a resolution, same thing like with the therapist, making sure that it's the right fit for you and that it's personalized, and just being bold about, wanting to be better, feel better, do better. Advocating for yourself. And we talked a lot about that as well, about self-advocacy. That's also a part of discovering your own love story and being bold. And a lot of times people of color, we don't always advocate for ourselves in that area of healthcare, and self-care is healthcare, you guys. Okay, so remembering that. There are therapy groups. Some people alongside the therapeutic process also, there are self-help books, literature. I know that I'm a certified life coach who helps women who have experienced trauma at the hands of a parent. I read lots and lots of literature because at the same time that I am, gifted the opportunity to help other individuals who have experienced trauma at the hands of a parent, specifically sexual trauma, like myself, I'm a part of the healing process, and it's a journey for myself as well. Because as you guys know, healed is not a final destination. It's a process that we continue journeying through, right? But I'm also being healed at the same time. I'm going through that process, right? And so just like any other professional, you want to make sure that you're constantly receiving, information, gaining wisdom at the same time. Okay. We already talked about the employee assistance program. Brandy, what about you? What are some of the things and tools that you've utilized in your healing process?
Therapy is one of them, and I do appreciate what Kenyon said with God and therapy, and they can coexist. I actually have a shirt that I wear sometimes that says I have Jesus and a therapist. So therapy was one of those things that I use for self-care for myself. And in different seasons, I actually got a life coach, which Amber is my life coach. She was. So I had to get life coaching. And then I just had to start being very intentional about doing things to pour back into myself, like having a grateful journal, having, I have my journal. I don't know where it is. I don't want to get up because I'm on live, but it's called like Pray, Pause, Think, and being able to write in that. And making sure that I'm doing something before I go to bed for myself. So whether that was taking a hot bath, eating a snack late at night without the kids, that's probably my favorite. Paint my nails, reading a book of my choice, watching a movie, whatever that looked like. I know that for me, because I am a single mom, but I started homeschooling my son. That was taking up a lot of my time. And then having my kids in therapy, and then me doing my own therapy and trying to do ministry, and then trying to keep structure at home in the midst of all these 10 million things that we were doing. A lot of nights when I would finally sit down on the couch, I was beat. And so learning to pour back into myself, even if it's one little thing on top of the therapy, on top of God, I had to really learn how to start treating myself.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that it was okay, y'all, for some of y'all who are mothers, it was okay for me to like go to McDonald's on my lunch break, or by myself and just eat, or sit out on my porch and drink coffee in the morning when the sun was hitting me. Like, whatever those little pieces were, I had to really just start being intentional about pouring back into myself and making sure that I was doing that. And when I wasn't doing it, I could feel that depletion. I could feel that imbalance that I talked about earlier. Whenever I wasn't being intentional about staying on top of those things, I could literally feel it in my emotions. My sleep patterns were changing, like all the things that you hit. So that was probably it for me. Therapy, God, life coach, and just doing my own self-care for Brandy.
That's beautiful.
And learning how to say no. And learning how to say no. Because that was a big one for me. And setting boundaries, Amber, as you know, but learning how to say no and knowing that it is okay to say no.
Yes, that's a big one. And we talked in our past segments about people accepting your no the same way that they accept your yes. Kenya points out, yes, be gentle with yourself. Absolutely. And then First Lady says that's good, the little things. The other thing that we've, really pointed out are self-care Saturdays and Sundays. We talked a lot about that. And then Fivers are a big deal for us. And we're not pointing that out. Yeah, setting boundaries is huge. Absolutely. The other thing is we're pointing out self-care Saturdays and Sundays and Fivers. That means just taking time out to take even 5 minutes, because our motto is just start somewhere. But we're saying that the just starting somewhere is that some people literally don't take time out for themselves, at all. And so with our motto being just start somewhere, starting small, because Jesus takes us from tiny to triumphant, right? So just starting somewhere, and then that leads us to those things that it goes from practice, to where we don't have to apply it like a wound, because we're not walking around being, the walking wounded anymore, right? Because we play how we practice. So we want to go from saying, okay, so in my 8-week coaching model, Brandy knows this, that we talk about the first 15. So the first 15 minutes of the day, right? We utilize those tips and techniques to really start doing those things for ourselves. Or if it's at the end of the day, because when you start somewhere, you start setting that to where if that's a muscle that you've never exercised before, where taking care of yourself, loving yourself better, putting the mask on yourself first, then you're just starting somewhere, then really it gets to be a muscle that you start to exercise more frequently. And then it's something that becomes a muscle memory that you really are like, oh, okay, this feels good. So it's not just a Saturday or Sunday, because self-care is healthcare. And it's something that really we should do every single day. And then it goes from being just that 15 minutes to where we work up to where it's more frequent, because the more we do it, the better we are for ourselves, right? And others. So Brandy, since we talked about first 15, what are some of the things that like you do in your first 15?
I drink coffee. And I am a worshiper. So sometimes my first 15 is only listening to worship music and making sure that I'm connecting with God in that way. Sometimes my first 15s are a mixture of drinking coffee, reading the Bible, worshiping, praying. It just kind of all depends on how I'm, feeling that day or how I'm being led. But most of the time, my first 15, I spend it in worship. We all know that it's powerful. You know what I mean? So making that connection in that way for me is important. I can feel, like all my senses just like come alive in worship. So
So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
you're
So
fine.
when I first started coaching you, um, I said, hey, first 15 is a part of my coaching model, and then you tailored it to you because first 15 is individualized, right?
Hmm.
It's not something that me as a coach is like, hey, I'm, hitting you over the head saying you have to do this during your first 15. Brandy came up with that all by herself because your first 15 are things that are personalized specifically to you because those are things that pour into her. And it set the tone because Brandy came to me and said, oh my gosh, like this started setting the tone for her day. And then do you want to share with the audience how it really kind of started having an impact on the kids' day?
Um, I am, for all who don't know, I am an educator. I am a preschool teacher, and so I think we all know that if they can wake up in the morning and a day is not rushed and everything's not packed in so soon, it alleviates anxiety. It gives them a sense of peace before they go out the door. My son Titus would always join in worship with me. Um, because that's just what he does. Amber calls him the bishop.
Oh dear.
My girls, uh, he's something else. But my girls, I was starting to notice that they were just more peaceful in the morning when they would get up. Like it was literally just setting the atmosphere in my house, where before it was, get your coat, get your shoes, let's go, we got to go, it's time to go. It was almost like God was just kind of breezing us through those things. Like, I don't know how to say, it was just like a flow, if you will. It wasn't rushed because I do know the impact of rushing children in the morning. How you start your day is how your day is going to go for the rest of the day. So if they're waking up anxious, if they're waking up being rushed, if they're waking up being irritated, that's going to set their day for the rest of the day. So I knew for me, when I could see how much it was regulating me and how much it was regulating my children, um, it was just something I took off and ran with. Sometimes y'all leaving my house with my kids and then going to a whole classroom with kids. Sometimes the days wasn't always peaches and cream, but I was regulated and I felt confident because I was spending that time pouring into myself with God, that I was able to, just maneuver through the day, if that makes sense. Is that
Yeah,
what you were looking for, Amber?
yeah, that's
Okay.
great because I think that what ended up happening was a first 15 that's utilized for self-care became really a coping strategy, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
useful not just for you, but for your family, because self-care is healthcare, but it makes us better for ourselves and others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, really, we were talking about the ultimate goal, our ultimate source being God, right? Is that He gives us the opportunity to be better, right? And so He's the source of all good. And us living our not just our best life, but our blessed life, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, a house in chaos, we know that chaos is not of God, and then, I mean, who wants to wake up to just, chaos every day? Nobody does. There's not anybody that's like, hand raised, like me, right? And it can be just a frantic time when you have different children, different personalities. We love our children. But I mean, who's like raising their hand going, yes, I want to wake up to the blessed life every day? Show of hands. Yes, absolutely. And so to have your mornings just completely change and take on a different tone, that's a blessing for any mom, parent out there, right? And so that's what we're saying is just having those wonderful strategies of basic goals of going, let's get out the door without me feeling like I'm going to be snatched bald headed today, right? As a mom, right? It's just going, I just want to just look at these children and go, oh my gosh, this is just amazing, because we love our children and we just want things to just be great in the morning. And we want our kids to get out the door and have an amazing day, to set the tone of their day great, getting out the door. So wonderful. So thank you for sharing that. So the other thing is that what's revealed can be healed. We say that all the time. And that often healed, once again, is not a final destination, that it is a journey. It's a process. We just want you guys to start somewhere. So we've shared all these things, and I just thank Brandy so much for getting on here. And, I've hit her with all these different things. And we did not prepare at all. She just came on here, just beautiful as she always is, and has been so transparent about her life and our coaching and everything, and has been sharing with you guys. So thank you so much, Brandy. God is our ultimate source, you guys. And I want Brandy to share, because what we talked about this evening is identifying resources that just help us to be a better version of self, a renewed version of self. And so Brandy is an amazing, anointed, blessed woman that I talked about earlier when I introduced her. And she has an amazing, amazing model that she has set up called Village Keepers. And I want her to really just talk a little bit about it. I'm not going to say any more, because I want her to share with you guys about her vision for how she has this set up to really be a resource to others. So Brandy, take it.
All right. Well, I just want to just thank you and LaShawn for allowing me to come on and, just share your space and talk to all the beautiful women that are on here tonight. But I'll just be brief with the Village Keepers. I first want to say that the Village Keepers was downloaded in me, if you will, through things that I was seeing go on in my city with certain children or with families. Some of my daughter's friends, they were running away from home. They were struggling mentally. They were struggling emotionally. And God was really putting this burden on me that we need the village. I would wonder, like, Lord, where would these girls be, or where would the mothers be if they just had like a wrapping around from other mothers or other people in the community? Where would they be if they just had that wrapping around? So God had really started dealing with me about the village. And when he was dealing with me about the village, he was also dealing with me about myself, because I am a single mother. I am raising 2 teenage girls at the same time. So y'all pray for me. I have a young son, but I know how much my village, if you will, has impacted me. I know how much me having a village around me and my children has covered us, how it has equipped us, how there was not really a lot of times while I've been raising my children that we've literally went without anything. And I have God to thank for that, because he always sent a village to come around me and my children, whether it was through my life coach, the church mothers, certain friends who were just equipped and, more stable that could help. I often think about, where would me and my kids be if we didn't have our village? And so the village doesn't have to be big. You don't need a lot of people in your village. You just need solid people who are willing to come in and support. And so the Village Keepers was birthed from me being able to look at the benefits that I've had of a village, and me also being able to look at some of the things that were going on in my community with other families that were close to us, and how it was burdening me to always think, where would they be if they had a village? And so the mission in the Village Keeper is to create the village and to keep it. I know without a shadow of a doubt that if it had not been for the village that God has sent around me and my children, I don't know where we would be. I don't want to think about it. I don't entertain that. I'm just always grateful for every season that I have been in my life, that God has sent a village, if you will, to cover me and my children. The vision for the Village Keeper is to create the village to coach and empower women to heal from trauma, abuse, to break generational curses of trauma and abuse, and not to pass it down to their children. My goal for the Village Keepers LLC is to provide resources to break poverty, to break mental illness, to break low self esteem, and to break dysfunctional family dynamics. Which goes back to a lot of the things that Amber talked about in the self care. If you don't know where these resources are, if you don't know where to reach out to help, excuse me, that means that you're lacking. And so that means that your village, if you will, your family is the basic needs are not being met. So these are things that I would like to do, and things that I do in the Village Keepers. I have broken my business down in a 4 phase tier. Phase one is that you receive coaching through the trauma and abuse and the dysfunction. Amber talked about that earlier. And if we're not able to address our trauma, if we're not able to heal from our abuse, if we're not able to identify dysfunction in our lives, then we keep cycling, and you'll go back to the trauma, and you'll go back to the dysfunction, and you'll go back to the abuse because you haven't dealt with it. So the first phase in Village Keepers LLC is to address these things. The second phase is to have coaching, to be able to, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm getting tied up with my words. I think I'm getting nervous, but that's okay. The second phase is coaching to have healthy relationships, because a lot of us, like myself, who have dealt with trauma and dysfunctional families and abuse, you don't often know how to have healthy relationships with women, with your children, with coworkers, anybody that you come in a relationship with. All you know is dysfunction. So I think it's very important that we equip and teach women and children and families how to have healthy relationships among themselves, but then to expand that so that they're able to have healthy relationship with their teachers, with their coaches, with leaders at the church, with their pastors, anybody in the community. But often you can't model something that you don't know how to do. So if you don't know how to have healthy relationships, it's important to be taught how to have healthy relationships. This does break the generational curse of dysfunctional family, of trauma and abuse. It breaks the generational curses of fear. It breaks the generational curses of rejection. There's a lot of things that are broken when you begin to learn how to have healthy relationships. And it is okay to have healthy relationships. God created us to be family. He created us to be one. And dysfunction just doesn't fit into that. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we are a product of our environment until we begin to get exposed to something different and something new. Phase three is where we teach basic life skills. So cooking, cleaning, sewing, maintaining outward appearance, self-worth, self-esteem. This is what phase three looks like. And then in phase four, we learn financial literacy, stewardship, and management. And all of these things help to build a healthy village. Whenever you have someone who is willing to wrap around you, if you will, the village should always help, equip, support, and restore. And I know for me personally, when Amber became my life coach, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. At that time, I was dealing with some depression, and I was struggling with my low self-esteem. Thank you, Lord. And when Amber became my life coach, I was able to tackle that trauma. I was able to tackle the low self-esteem. I was able to tackle some of the mental illnesses or mental struggles that I was dealing with at that time. I was able to tackle those things. And after me and Amber went through 4 weeks of me kind of tackling those things, life got real rough for me then. And she warned me that it would. Because we always know that when you begin to get free and you begin to uncover and reveal things in your life, the enemy begins to get really upset. And so things did start to get real for me. I was able to break through that, y'all. I was able to push through that. But after that, I wrote 2 books. I dropped a podcast of my own. What else did I do, Amber?
You
I worked.
started dancing more.
Yeah, I started putting together my business plan for the Village Keepers LLC. I mean, there was just things that before I was able to get a village, it was just talk. It seemed like it was a far-fetched vision for me to do a podcast. It was a far-fetched vision for me to be able to create structure in my home. It was a far-fetched vision for me to be able to actually start writing my books and putting chapters together. And I'm not bragging on me, I'm bragging on what God did. But through the village, through Amber, through my spiritual mothers, through the therapist that I had for me and my children at that time, through prayer, through all of those things that we talked about on here, I was able to come out of some ruts that I was in. And so I know the power of a village. And this is what I want to be able to give to other women and families who may be struggling, because I know the power of a village. And so that's the Village Keepers LLC. I am looking for women who want to become village keepers. At this time, the Village Keepers is just a business and a ministry that requires sacrifice, it requires dedication, and it requires commitment. I know the power of a village, you guys. I cannot say that enough. I know the power of having women around you that believe in you. I know the power of having women around you who can literally pray you and counsel you through dark times. I know the power of people being able to surround you and your children when you're tired, and they'll watch your kids so that you can have a mommy's day out and you don't have to worry about the well-being of your kids. I know the power of women like Amber, who've already been where I am, raising 3 kids by themselves, and you trying to deal with the little girl in you so that your kids don't have to go through it. I know the power of being able to call someone in the village and say, hey, I'm short on groceries. I need about $40, whatever it is. This is what the Village Keepers is for. And I know the power of a village. And I know how important it is to have a village when you're in these different transitions of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. You guys, gonna put Brandy's email information in the chat for you guys, because I want you to be able to get in contact with her. The Village Keepers, if it's placed on your heart to, make a donation, whether it is, money, whether it is sweat equity, whether it is, a donation of time in service of, watching, daycare services or something like that, then you can get in contact with her and let her know. Then that would be great. So I'm going to type that in the chat. So that is her information that is in the chat right now. You can also get in contact with her just to connect with her. We are so happy that she has come on. Stay tuned, because her books are going to be coming out. She is working on them. She is sending them piece by piece. She is a mother, a blessed mother of 3. But she is working diligently. Holy Spirit is working through her to get those books out to you guys. So keep your eye out for those. She also does just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful praise dances that just will move you to the altar, literally move you to the altar. She has TikToks available that are just, you will be moved through a TikTok, literally, like, a 30 to 60 second TikTok. So hold on just a second. Let me put, and I have her name in the chat so you guys can connect. Get on there, hit like, subscribe on all of her social media platforms, because she is an amazing, blessed woman for sure. So please connect, and you will see her again. This is not the last time that she will either be on here co-hosting with me. You will see her on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. We also have some upcoming events, and I'm sure that you'll see Brandy at some of our events as well. LaShawn and I have the Right Piece Writers Workshop that is coming up. Also, Chef Sharon, I see one of her comments. I don't know if she's still on here. Chef Sharon Morgan. She is also a part of the Right Piece Writers Workshop that is coming up May the 21st. So that is right around the corner, you guys. Get the tickets while they're hot. It is going to be on and popping, an on fire type of time, you guys. And I just know that people are literally going to show up, and like you're going to show up one way and you're going to leave completely just changed. So show up for that. We also have LaShawn and I are doing the Soaring Retreat that is October the 7th through October the 10th in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So just please let us know. I'm going to put that in the chat if you would like to get your tickets and pay your deposit. That is October the 7th through October the 10th in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And we also have the Right Piece Writers Workshop, May 21st. So if you guys would like information about any of those things, please contact us at Soaring Into. I'm typing all this. Typically, I got my wing woman in here, and we're doing this together. So y'all bear with me as I type and try to do all this. I have so much respect for LaShawn being tech support. Okay, so Soaring Into My Love Story at gmail.com. So if you guys want any information regarding any of our upcoming events, please hit Soaring Into My Love Story at gmail.com. I'm also going to put Brandy BG Green's information on the screen. It's Brandy Green. Please make sure that you go to her page. And if you want to contact her, that is her Gmail information. Village Keepers. She is amazing, you guys. Blessed. So thankful that she was able to get on here with us this evening. And we're just so happy that you guys showed up for Talk About It Tuesday with us this evening. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful and blessed evening. We will see you guys next week. Love y'all. Smooches.